but it was actually not in Roswell proper. It was just kind of north of Roswell. On June 14th, 1947 is when it happened in Lincoln County. And yes, if you're looking on the camera, I am looking at notes because I took notes. So thank you. Once. You're welcome. So it happened in 1947. Mm-hmm. Who was the dude? There was a dude that it was on his ranch.
Let me check my notes here. His name was Mark Brazel. So
he went by Mac, actually. Mac the Knife.
Sorry, Mac.
Mac Brazel.
Anyways, but sometimes
or Brazel if you're French.
Before June 14th is when the crash occurred. So, of 1947. So
well, he said it happened June 14th.
On the 4th of July in 1947, he was a local rancher, and his name was Mac Brazel. He visited the site. He picked up some of the debris, brought it to the local sheriff's office, probably because he was dumbfounded. Like, what am I looking at? He was probably freaked the fuck out, to be honest. Like, I would probably save some and make sure I hid it somewhere really good, and then I would bring it to the feds, because I would be like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, here's the thing, too, is that we're going to go into two different theories. That there's one that is... They both actually are kind of in line with this podcast, because there's one that's super creepy government's trying to do shit in the background and trying to do stuff.
For sure.
And the other one is extraterrestrial. And so I would imagine that even if he tried to keep that stuff, if it's an ET, they're gonna confiscate that stuff. Or if it's like government doing shady ass shit, they're gonna confiscate that too. Which is that's kind of words I come out with when I'm drinking.
Well, it makes me wonder too, because the
confiscate.
The timeline that I had said. So they said the crash happened somewhere around June 14th, and supposedly when this Mac guy had found it on the 4th, it's kind of like if you see a big ass and you hear a big ass crash like that, I'm thinking like they must have seen some stuff before that, and maybe they just didn't know what to do. Maybe they didn't know what to do, and then eventually they told somebody. But I feel like that's kind of a long time to not tell the feds. And why didn't the feds see anything?
That's the thing too, is that
weird. There's a weird little.
So let's get into Mac's timeline. So Mac said he saw it. He said, who knows if he's screwed up the dates? But he said he saw it. Well, he said he saw it on the June 14th. He saw some weird stuff, right? Well, and then he found the stuff on the 4th of July.
He visited the site, but then he didn't bring it to the sheriff's office till the 7th. So what was he skeptical? Why? Why didn't he want to bring it sooner? Was he just scared? I don't know. I don't understand. Was the alien alive? Was he taking care of the alien? Because the timeline's a little crazy.
Put him up for Airbnb them for a night.
I would have.
Yeah, no, I don't know. That's the weird thing, is that he's a weird guy. He's a bizarre dude.
Come on, no offense to the farmers out there, and I ain't talking about farmers out here in California. I'm talking about ones in fucking where's John from? From Arkansas.
Nobody knows John. You
don't need to.
Yeah, we have a guy who's from Arkansas, and
I'm talking about the out
singled him out for no apparent reason.
Out there, those people that be out there, they don't even see other humans for miles and stuff like that. You hear some stuff, and so maybe this was a situation like that.
Well, I mean, think about that perfect storm for Mac. I mean, you're not only out in the boondocks. You're out in the boondocks in New Mexico, where the government it could be, here's the thing too, is that the government did a lot of stuff in New Mexico. They did a lot of tests. They did a lot of stuff in New Mexico and Nevada and all that stuff. They did a lot of government testing and that sort of thing. 2 hours away from his ranch, they lit off a fucking atomic bomb.
Right.
2 hours from your ranch. So the government was doing all kinds of crazy shit. So you could argue on both hands that maybe the aliens were attracted to this area because of all the government testing. They're like, well, this is a spot where a lot of activity. I don't know if it's. I'm trying to fuel your fire here. I'm actually giving you a little kudos.
I don't aliens are smarter than that. They would stay the fuck away from them because they knew that they
Not smart enough to land a plane or a
do
UFO.
some kind of like
Homie crashed.
hey, you know what? Like, you know, we say we're only human. They're only alien, and we might be part alien too.
Yeah.
So it's like, well,
They had to change the sign on the master spaceship to 0 days since the last injury.
anyways, so after Mac had returned it in
Back
to
to
the
Mac.
sheriffs on the 7th, the following day, that's when it was like a press release where they put it in the paper. I mean, they still have like documentation of the papers, which is really wild. Like, if I was alive back then, I would have loved to have just kept one and like framed it because I just think that'd be so cool to see.
Oh, the paper's got to be.
See that in the paper.
I wonder if
like,
there's an
UFO.
original one of those
There
out
has
there.
to be.
So that'd be cool to have. I mean-
Pictures. I've looked them up online. You know, so they
Yeah.
definitely have the documentation.
It's out there. I'm sure there's one floating around somewhere.
So, you know, and they quoted there was a flying saucer in their possession. So, I mean, it like for a whole day, or not even a whole day, that same day.
So to pit on that one, this Mac Brazel, however you pronounce it, he found it in his farm.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was quoted as saying there was rubber strips, tin foil.
He was quoted saying that after the cover. They said he had to cover it up.
Well, he was quoted as saying, regardless, he was quoted as saying there's rubber strips, tin foil, some paper objects, and sticks. Whether the government coerced him to say that, who
Which
knows?
they did.
Well, that was his account of what he found, at least. So he found this object. He reported it. He turned it into basically the local sheriff. This sounds like an HBO series through and through. But he turned it into the local sheriff and said, "I don't know what this is. Like this showed up in my."
Or he said, "I know exactly what this is."
He said, "There's an alien. He's posted up in my bedroom. He won't leave."
Well, there was the documentation that more than one local had seen bodies. More than one bodies. And they were like from 3 feet to 4 feet tall. Elongated.
Elongated.
Who's
been drinking now?
I'm like way surpassed you over
Listen,
there.
we're
with
on quarantine
your
life. Let's
blue
just-
ribbon.
Neither one of us have jobs at this point, so let's just go for this.
Oh God, save us. Anyways, like elongated heads.
Hey, but we have each
big
other.
eyes, just little holes for nostrils, and just like a slit for their mouth.
There was some sightings, and we're all over the map on this episode, which is beautiful, which is right in line with where we're
I
at.
think we're good.
You think we're good?
Calm the fuck down and keep drinking.
Hey, you calm down.
Fucking drink some more.
Take a sip. So he reported to the sheriff. Sheriff was like, I don't know what this is either. It's a bad. Nobody talks like that in New Mexico. But he reported it to his Army buddy, his Air Force buddy, who also said, I don't know what this is. And they just kept reporting up the chain until it got...
One of he was one of the guys from the Air Force, like, head honchos. He wanted all the debris
The big
brought
boss.
to him. This was like literally the same day, so they had to bring it. Like the sheriffs from New Mexico had to bring it to Texas so he can go over it. And of course, like as soon as he got
Wait for the sound!
he was able to be like, oh yeah, this is just one of our weather balloons. We've been doing, like, no big deal. And to me, I'm like, let's think now. Like, you would think the sheriff office, as soon as they made that phone call to the Air Force, you would just automatically, they would be like, oh, it's a weather balloon. We've had it there. We have them kind of all over America. We're doing these testings right now, blah, 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 blah. But no, send it to me. How come it wasn't automatic? Like, no, it's a weather balloon.
Well, here's the thing, too. It's confirmed that the government covered it up. There's a skeptic's answer, which we'll get into, on the reason why the government covered it up. And then there's obviously the believer's answer on why the government covered it up. But there's no question that the government... So it landed in this local rancher's house, and he brought it up to the local sheriff, which must have been a fun... I wish I was in that meeting, because I would have been just, what the hell is this? they kept moving it up the chain until they got to a person who was like, "Oh, they shouldn't know about this." Whether you're a skeptic or whether you're a believer in the ET end of it, there was definitely, it got to a point in the military where the officer was like, "Oh, no, they shouldn't know about this. Like, this is like let's go ahead and cover this up now." And there's some argument that that there was reasoning why they let kind of the alien thing float. But let's get into that news article that kind of busted open the gates and kind of, obviously, like we said, there was a lot of flying saucer sites and everything around that time, but the thing that kind of busted open the gates on people's interest in the 60s and 70s and 80s and beyond this whole 1947 kind of sighting phenomenon was this article that was written the day I think the Air Force officer and Brazel.
Yeah. And they went to like everybody that was like a eyewitness. All of a sudden their stories changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a weather balloon. And then here's another reason why I'm like, why did they have to take a picture to show that it's just a weather balloon? Like, to me, it was just like, dang, you already drank the other one too?
No, I
fucking
no, I didn't. I did not. I passed on the other one. I tasted it and I passed on the other one.
Oh.
There's various assortments of stuff. No, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me why the fuck they had to take a picture. Like,
oh, there's no question that it was a government cover-up.
Yeah.
That's like the government later on in the 90s admitted like we covered it up. Of course we covered it up. And this is why we covered
it up, and it was another cover-up of a
cover-up. Welcome to your government. Yeah. No, that's not surprising. Of course that's how it is. And they're not going to release that kind of stuff until much later. I think it was, so we'll get back into that again. They released some stuff in the 90s that kind of pulled back the curtain in their eyes, and a lot of people's eyes, the more traditional idea of it. It pulled back the curtain and kind of explained away what happened at Roswell, from a kind of traditionalist, non-ExtraNormal perspective. But so this article came out. So the Air Force officer and Brazel both came out, and they essentially did an interview with the local newspaper, and they used the word flying saucer, and they said, "Yeah, we found a flying saucer," which just made everybody go, "Whoa! Like this is a big deal." Like, obviously, it's...
but then they were trying to cover that up and saying like, "Oh, like that's not what we called UFOs back then," because you know how like our dialects change, and like the Egyptians didn't call UFOs, you know, like,
well,
they had a different name for it. So they were trying to say that, like, oh, when they use the word, like how that was said in the news, like when they use that word, it wasn't really meant for like what we think UFOs
Well, here's the thing, is that, so during that time, so Brazel, the rancher who found it, the Air Force guy, the second rung up the ladder, the guy who the sheriff reported to, said that, hey, we found this thing, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a flying saucer. It's a flying saucer. So they reported it to the newspaper. And then afterwards, I think, a day later?
Yes.
Essentially the newspaper...
It was that same day when it came out in the newspaper.
Oh, I didn't know it was the same day.
Yeah, that's when they were kind of like, okay, what the fuck is this? Like, no, we need to shut this down. And then that's when the Air Force from Texas had stepped in, bring it over to me, and next day covered it up. It was done, and then that's when the new thing came out of the paper, and it was smart of them to do that because they probably knew people were already freaking look at how people are dealing with our pandemic.
Well, I think that honestly,
can you imagine if during this time, especially with the pandemic, also we had like a fucking Roswell situation going on, people would just fucking lose their shit.
Oh, I think this pandemic is really showing us how we react to crisis and stuff like that, especially in the States.
We're not ready. It's just
Oh no, we're not ready.
we're not ready for
Nobody's really ready
pandemics,
for pandemics.
and we're not ready for extraterrestrials apparently.